Next, we come to the Network tab. When we click on the Network tab, it will bring us to this overview, which will show the current settings of the X600. If I want to come and make changes to my Ethernet connection, I can click on the Ethernet tab. And by default, the device is set to 192.168.1.2. But for the purposes of this demo, I've set this device to be set up on my network. If I want to make changes to the network settings for the X600, I can do that here. And you must commit the changes for the new IP address to take effect. Next, we come to the wireless tab. The X600 by default is not wireless, but it does support a USB to Wi-Fi. So if you wanted to have a wireless network connection with the X600, you can enter in your network security settings here. It should be noted that for the Advanced Network tab, you must access first the Network tab, and then you can click the Advanced Network to view additional settings. Here, under the Network tab, we can access the web server settings. So this is for our HTTP and HTTPS port numbers. These are the default port numbers, and you can make those changes. If you plan on using Modbus, this is where you can view Modbus registers. By default, the X600 does not have Modbus enabled, but if I did enable Modbus, I could view my Modbus register values here if I wanted to do Modbus TCP/IP. Next, we come to the Remote Services Server. This can be used when you want to have other Control by Web devices reach out to the X600 instead of having the other way around where you wanted the X600 to communicate with other Control by Web devices. In most installations, this should not be enabled, and by default, it is not enabled. Next, we can come to the Remote Services Client tab. Here, if you wanted to have the X600 talk to an external web server, you can specify the host name and port number here. SNMP is the next tab. If you plan on using an SNMP manager for the X600, you can go in and specify the host name, server port, the credentials for the SNMP manager, and then you can also generate and download the MIB file. And it should be noted that the MIB file is generated dynamically, so as you add I/O, you would need to generate and download a new MIB file. Next, we come to the email setup. Here we can set up our email server with the X600 to set up email notifications. You can specify the host name, so whether you're using Gmail, Yahoo, Office 360, you can specify the host name here. The server port, any connection security, whether it's TLS or SSL, you can go in and specify the security, and then the login credentials for that server. Next, we can come to FTP. If you plan on uploading log files to an FTP server, you can go in and specify the host name and port number here. And lastly, under network settings, if you plan on using NetBIOS or MDS when you first set up the X600, by default, these are all enabled, and this setting is only used when you first plan on setting up the X600, and typically this isn't used.